What's going on, Summoners? My name is Nathan Ng, and in this video I'll be running you guys through the newest Korean builds for patch 12.3. In case you're unfamiliar with these series, we keep you up to date with the trending builds innovative players are using in the rank climb. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any content like this, and let's get started. We'll start things off in the top lane. Our very first build is for Akali top. So how do you balance something that's tanky, mobile, and deals oppressive amounts of damage? Well, you don't. And that's what this build is about. You get plenty of everything. It's a nightmare because while Akali is already difficult to deal with, Turbo Chem Tank is the choice of mythic item for this newest build. It makes her obnoxiously hard to kill and much better at chasing down enemies. Since the rest of the build adds some AP and a few extra defensive bonuses, she still hits as hard as the typical assassin Akali that we usually see. Chem Tank's burn damage and the empowered basic attacks it provides also bolster up Akali's DPS. For runes, run Conqueror, Presence of Mind, Legend Tenacity, Coup de Grace, Second Wind, Overgrowth, Double Adaptive Force, and a defensive rune of choice. For her items, build Turbo Chem Tank, Sorcerer's Shoes, Demonic Embrace, Shadow Flame, Zarya's Hourglass, and Rabadon's Death Cap. The second top lane build that we have for you is Viktor. For better or for worse, he's also found a new tankier build to utilize. His mythic item of choice here is Divine Sunderer. The magic penetration that it grants alongside the sustain from the Spellblade effect makes Viktor a tyrant during the laning phase. His trading is unmatched as a result of his Q shield, damage, and again his sustain, which is further aided by Grasp of the Undying. For runes, run Grasp of the Undying, Shield Bash, Bone Plating, Overgrowth, Mana Flow Band, Gathering Storm, Double Adaptive Force, and a defensive rune. Shield Bash is an important one since it synergizes heavily with this Q. In addition, if you take Gathering Storm, you can easily make up the lost damage. For his items, build Divine Sunderer, Sorcerer's Shoes, Demonic Embrace, Zarya's Hourglass, and Rabadon's Death Cap. Ultimately, the build doesn't allow you to scale up as quickly as the First Strike Keystone. However, you can put up a much better fight during the laning phase, and as a result, can even pick up more farm. Otherwise, you can instead account for the fact that your opponent is going to be having to sacrifice a lot more CS because of the pressure that you can apply. That's it for the top lane, so let's take a look at the screen for a recap of those builds. Next, we'll talk about the jungle builds. In the jungle, we'll start with Diana. As most players are already far too aware, she is back. The theme of tank itemization continues as running Conqueror combined with tank items allows Diana to lead the charge in teamfights. With the extra durability, she's able to stay alive and utilize Conqueror for its bonus AP and sustain. For her runes, run Conqueror, Triumph, Legend Alacrity, Last Stand, Shield Bash, Overgrowth, Attack Speed, Adaptive Force, and Armor. For her items, build Defensive Boots, Sunfire Aegis, Demonic Embrace, Nashor's Tooth, either Spirit Visage or Randuin's Omen, and a healing reduction item. Against heavy AD comps, you'll obviously choose Randuin's and also want to throw in a Thornmail. Morellonomicon is a superior option when you don't need that extra armor. Next in the jungle is a build for Rammus. This build is an aggressive one that players can take advantage of when ahead. The item that you look for is Blade of the Ruined King, which makes him a terrifying 1v1 threat. It might be really weird to see a tank building Blade of the Ruined King, but it's worth noting that a decent number of them, including Rammus, have pretty solid attack speeds. Rammus' built-in attack speed stats are good enough that he can actually make very good use of this item as a standalone offensive purchase. It makes fighting tanks and bruisers much easier, and the Siphon effect makes it easier to stay in melee range of any target. For the runes, take Conqueror, Triumph, Tenacity, Last Stand, Water Walking, Celerity, Attack Speed, Adaptive Force, and Armor. For his items, build Sunfire Aegis, Defensive Boots, Blade of the Ruined King, Thornmail, Force of Nature, and Zarya's Hourglass or Gargoyle Stoneplate. By the way, if you want to stay ahead of the game and even get a better understanding of when to use these unorthodox builds, hit up a coach on our website ProGuides.com. You can even use the code WINTER to get 20% off a subscription. That wraps up the jungle, so we'll throw the builds up on screen one more time for you all. Take final notes on them and we'll move into the mid lane next. Our next build is for Sylas. Recently, Manamune has been gaining a decent amount of popularity. With a lot of players building it, we're here to provide the build for you all. First are his runes, which are Conqueror, Presence of Mind, Legend Tenacity, Last Stand, Second Wind or Bone Plating, Revitalize, Double Adaptive Force, and a defensive rune. His items are Riftmaker, Defensive Boots, Manamune, Zarya's Hourglass, Cosmic Drive, and Rabadon's Death Cap. Manamune significantly increases Sylas' damage as he ties in plenty of basic attacks into his combos to utilize his passive. His passive includes some AD scaling, but there's also the fact that once it's upgraded to Mirror Mana, it provides a larger spike as well. Next up, we have a build for Irelia. Here we go again, but everybody wants to build tank items on everybody except tanks. While Irelia doesn't really struggle to reach the backline, running Turbo Chem Tank can really help her initiate fights or finish off enemies making desperate efforts to escape from her. It's also possible to use Chem Tank slow and movement speed to set up either an E or an ultimate. For runes, run Conqueror, Triumph, Legend Alacrity, Last Stand, Bone Plating, Unflinching, Attack Speed, Adaptive Force, and a defensive rune. For items, build Turbo Chem Tank, Defensive Boots, Wits End or Blade of the Ruined King, Stair Axe, then get Wits End or Blade if you didn't purchase it earlier, and finally a Guardian Angel. That covers the mid lane, so make sure you take a final look on the screen for a recap of those builds. We have a ton of bottom lane builds to cover, so before we jump into that, let's talk about our question of the day. What are your thoughts on Zarya? She definitely feels overtuned to me, but what stands out to me most is how mobile she is. But also, I'm horrible with her, so there's that. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and let's finish up the video. Let me run you guys through the latest build that players are using for Zarya since I just mentioned her. I'll first mention that a good number of players prefer to run Exhaust rather than Summon or Heal, so take note of that. For her runes, run Lethal Tempo, Presence of Mind, Legend Tenacity if they have Crowd Control, or Legend Bloodline otherwise, Coup de Grace, Taste of Blood, Ravenous Hunter, Attack Speed, Adaptive Force, and a Defensive Rune. For the items, build Berserker's Greave, Trinity Force, Blade of the Ruined King or Wit's End, Black Cleaver, Titanic Hydra, and then a final choice between Blade of the Ruined King, Randuin's Omen, or Force of Nature. Zarya's kit works exceptionally well with on-hit effects, and the combination of Black Cleaver and Titanic Hydra really allow her to shred through both tanky and squishy foes with ease. Now for a support build, we have one for Elise. Always a rather mysterious support pick, she's once again gaining some popularity on the Korean server. The fact that she's a flex pick definitely adds some appeal. Enemy junglers might feel pressure to counter with an aggressive pick, so they don't really have to play an uphill battle. With her burst damage and versatile utility, Elise does a great job as a support under the right circumstances. She's able to scout out brushes with her W, which makes warding a lot safer under high pressure situations. Just like when she's jungling, her turret diving is excellent as she's able to tank the turret and then bail with her Spider Form E when necessary. For her runes, run Electrocute, Cheap Shot, Eyeball Collection, Relentless Hunter, Nimbus Cloak, Water Walking, Double Adaptive Force, and a Defensive Rune. For items, build Spell Thief's Edge, Sorcerer's Shoes, Hextech Rocket Belt, Zanya's Hourglass, either Morellonomicon for the healing reduction or Void Staff, and then Horizon Focus. Finally, we have a bot lane duo. While odd, it's actually going to be Ivern and Leona. This duo brings an impressive amount of utility, and the combination of Ivern's shield and Leona's W makes them a threat that a lot of players don't really know how to deal with. Surprisingly, these two utility champions also deal an insane amount of damage together. In addition, after level 6, the CC chain is menacingly strong. You're gonna be hit by one of Leona's ability, and then Daisy will sneak in some of her own hits into the mix. Getting knocked up in between Leona's CC puts the enemy in a stun lock and also allows Ivern to fully utilize Leona's passive for that sweet bonus damage. As long as the duo bans out Vayne for her true damage and Morgana for her black shield, you should actually be in the clear. In most situations, enemy players are forced to run Summoner Cleanse as a response. For Leona's runes, run Aftershock, Shield Bash, Second Wind, Revitalize, Presence of Mind, Last Stand, Ability Haste, Adaptive Force, and a Defensive Rune. For items, build Frostfire Gauntlet, Defensive Boots, Thimble Winter, Demonic Embrace, Zanya's Hourglass, and Force of Nature. For Ivern's rune, run Summon Airy, Manaflow Band, Transcendence, Gathering Storm, Second Wind or Bone Plating, Revitalize, Ability Haste, Adaptive Force, and a Defensive Rune. For his items, build Moonstone Renewer or Irelia's Battle Song, Ionian Boots of Lucidity, Zanya's Hourglass, Staff of Flowing Water, and Redemption. That wraps up the bottom lane, so we'll put up those builds for you guys one last time. With all that covered, we have concluded with our Korean builds for patch 12.3. Thank you guys so much for watching, I hope you guys enjoyed it, and share your thoughts in the comments below, and also check out the description for a link to join our Discord. Until next time everybody, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day. Peace.